for that introduction. My name is Naleszkiewicz, and it is an honor to speak to you today in celebration of International Women's Day, which occurred a couple of weeks ago. And I am going to speak today about my journey into the cybersecurity field and hope that it will encourage and inspire you to look at that as a future career. I started off with a traditional education. I studied science and math in high school, and when I graduated, I went straight on to college, attending the Georgia Institute of Technology. I was an engineering student, intent on someday working in the avionics field, and I was also a co-op student, so that I would gain real-world experience while I was studying at school. I was working for a school bus company designing bus components when I discovered that I wasn't really interested in designing mechanical components. They fortunately also asked me if I could write some software to store all of the bus specifications for every bus model. They'd had huge 2-inch binders full of all of the measurements of every part on the school bus. I wanted to see if there was an easier way to access that information. So I taught myself databases and wrote a little software package with a user interface that would allow them easy access to this information, both from entering a bus's model number in order to see all the possible specifications, but also if they wanted to look at all of the bus models that use the particular component. I discovered I was far more fascinated about writing the software and had a real passion for data that I decided to switch to computer science with a specialization in database design. This is one of those opportunities when you discover something new about yourself and you take that as an opportunity to move in a new direction. And it has been very successful for me. When I was at college, I also experienced my first cybersecurity attack. Back in 1988, the Morris worm struck all the computers at my college, as well as many other colleges across the United States. It was the first computer worm. It was developed by a graduate student who was trying to show how insecure computer systems were, and the program he wrote just got away from him and did far, far more damage than he ever expected. It caused the first denial of service attack in that it replicated itself so many times on computers that they would crash them down and they would be unable to start again. So with all of these computers down, no work could be accomplished. It was also the first felony conviction for computer crime under the Computer Fraud Act. Another first was it led to the foundation of the CERT Coordination Center, which is an organization that provides emergency response information for cybersecurity attacks, and we all rely upon those notifications today. It contained a self-provocation feature that would become a major component of future malware. Now, all of this led to a personal impact in that my programming assignment was late, but it definitely brought awareness to me about how the world was changing, because it was first of several attacks of worms hitting computers both in workplaces and at universities that we would need to start reprogramming our servers to have better protection, to lock down access, and to really start securing our systems. When I graduated college, I went to work for a small startup company. And at a startup company, you often wear many hats. So I was a developer, database designer, database administrator, and Unix admin all rolled into one. And in addition to developing our new software, I was responsible for supporting the phone ordering system for a major pizza delivery company. And one day I was told that there was some performance issues occurring on the system, and it was starting to be the lunch hour, which is a very, very busy time for a company like this. So I looked at it and thought I knew how to fix it, and I applied a change during the middle of the lunch hour and brought the system down for more than an hour. I had made the change without any approval or oversight I had done no testing. I just simply thought I knew it was the right thing to do. And I was mistaken and caused a significant outage. My company gave me an opportunity for redemption and finding a way to try to prevent this in the future. And so I was tasked with creating our change management policy and overseeing the change control board. Up to that point, as a small startup, we didn't have any policies in place at all. And this change management policy would be the first of many that I would write over the years at the startup to help provide more structure and security and reliability to our system. Over time, in both in this role at the startup company and in later roles, I would act as IT manager and later director of IT. I was managing data centers, both from the facility level as well as managing all of the teams that were responsible for the servers and applications and databases. And one of the main challenges I would always struggle with was that there would be too many access points into the system. I have way too many stories about how credentials were used accidentally in a way that caused damage or were used inappropriately by young developers who thought that they knew better than everyone else, or by malicious people who wanted to do damage. I had another developer who also brought down a production system. This seems to be a common theme. He was trying to help out in troubleshooting an issue and instead brought the system down. And we had not put in any controls in place yet in order to really control access to the system. Shared accounts were another problem. When multiple people share an account and then something goes wrong, it's really hard to pinpoint who might have made the mistake or who might have deliberately caused the damage in order to really correct the problem. It was only when we instituted a proxy to log all access that we could really identify who was making the mistakes that was causing these outages. I had an occasion where a new employee's account was compromised by an angry ex-employee who was trying to log in and pretend to be that new employee in order to get them in trouble. I had another employee who was using their accesses in order to use our FedEx account in order to distribute portional items through our FedEx account and make money that way. So there's many ways in which we are providing too much access. I would start a new job at a company and I'd spend 50% of my time cleaning up access in order to satisfy SOX requirements. And this highlighted to me the critical importance of really having a strong identity and access management program, whereby you're creating identities for each individual, which can be used to really identify who that individual is, no longer using shared accounts, providing them only exactly the access that they need, and exercising the principle of least access. And then when you do have privileged accounts for the users who need to be able to maintain and administer those systems, I implemented privileged access management systems, which would provide just-in-time access to the systems so that they could support them when they needed to, but otherwise locking out access on a normal basis. And all of these were implemented in order to support segregation of duties so that only the people who needed access had it at the time, and that everyone else had only enough access privileges to do their function. I then made a transition to a full-time cybersecurity career. In my previous roles as IT director, I had been working for smaller companies that did not have a separate cybersecurity team. So it was my responsibility as an IT director to do all the cybersecurity roles. I was responsible for all of those policies, about 50% of my job. I transitioned full-time to cybersecurity when I became director of enterprise security services at a major media company. I was responsible for building a ground-up program that would provide endpoint security services to all of the business units within this enterprise. prior to that time, all of the business units were managing their security solutions on their own. And each business unit, there was a huge variation in how frequently they were patching, whether they were consistently applying antivirus on their systems, whether they had encryption in place, whether they had any good policies in place with regards to access, business continuity, all of the fundamentals of cybersecurity. So it was my responsibility to help standardize this, to help each of the business units put in place solid fundamentals. For some business units that were not patching on a regular basis, who felt that you only needed to patch if something was broken. And my role was to educate. I was also, by putting in these solutions and providing them out to the enterprises, helping to reduce costs by having a single solution instead of 10 solutions in each business unit. And I was also helping them to follow the standards within the company so that instead of some businesses being at risk because they had not patched for a critical malicious software in a year, but that everyone would be patched within the time period of 15 days and help provide that same level of protection across the board. In addition, having this central solution meant that I could then report up to the leadership, the executive leadership, where our risks are, where if a virus like WannaCry appeared, which systems would be at risk, so that we could focus on addressing those as rapidly as possible. Now, a major part of this required that I be able to build strong relationships and build trust with these business units. And this would really be key in all of my cybersecurity roles going forward. Now, my current role, I would say, is one where all of my past experiences and knowledge come together to really benefit this one role. I am now cybersecurity auditor at a major healthcare company. I run a small team of auditors, and my major function is to develop an audit plan around cybersecurity to really assess whether or not we are appropriately addressing all of the risks that our type of company and our industry would face. I provide subject matter expertise to my team and help bring them perspective on how IT and cybersecurity teams function on a day-to-day basis and help them understand the different priorities that you see in those teams. Our audit team is not one that does SOX auditing or takes checklists and checks off whether or not we're exactly following policy. Rather, we do risk-based auditing, where we analyze what are the most likely threats that will impact our company. And in many healthcare industries, the primary attack are cyber criminals who are interested in stealing the health information that we have around our customers and our stakeholders. This is data that goes for a very high price on the dark net. So that tends to be the area where we will focus most of our attention. How are we protecting that data? Now, in order to be able to be a really good auditor, it's important to constantly continue to learn what is the trends in cybersecurity risks and what are the new threats. I also am responsible for thinking far into the future and looking at what might be a threat that will come down the line and eventually affect us. So in addition to the current threats of ransomware and phishing, I also think forward about how artificial intelligence and blockchain and quantum computing could potentially impact us in the future. And I look at what steps we could take now to prepare for that so that we won't be caught off guard. We look and and analyze what our current goals of our cybersecurity program are in reference to these risks, and we look and see if there are any gaps in both the policies, but also in the technologies. Are the technologies that we are deploying really solving the problems that we want them to solve? And then I educate our auditors on the technologies, and we in turn turn around and educate our stakeholders on what it is that we do, so that we can come together as one team, united in support of our company. Now, over the years and all these different roles, I think that there are some key lessons as a cybersecurity professional that I can't emphasize enough. And I always, whenever I'm speaking to auditors or when I'm speaking to young professionals who want to look to enter this field, it's that fundamentals are really key. That even as we are developing more sophisticated and advanced tools to try to detect attacks, that it is still also very important to focus back on the fundamentals, that there is strong patching in place so that we're constantly protecting our computers against the next known threat, that we are implementing antivirus that can continue to monitor for the past threats, that we have good access policies in place, and that we really understand who has access to our systems and what kind of access they have. And then really good asset and data management, so that we know what are the systems that we're protecting and what data is on them that is so crucial to protect. It's also very important to know your business. If you don't really understand what it is that your business does and what's important to them, then it's hard to protect those assets. And if you really discuss with your business what's important to them, you'll find that they're less concerned about their profit than they are in making certain that their employees are safe, their customers or consumers are safe, and that they will be able to build a solid reputation upon those goals. And then they want to focus on bringing products to the industry in as speedy a fashion as possible, so that they can be competitive. So it's important to know these goals, so that you can then see how you can use cybersecurity to support those roles. It's important to be a partner to the other teams, to work with them to build cybersecurity in, and to work with them to help them understand what are the possible threats that come down the line. Instead of acting as a police officer that says no, that we can't do something, it's more important to say yes, and this is how we can do it safely. It's important to understand that cybersecurity is not just our job as a cybersecurity professional, but that it's everyone's job. If we think of everyone as a cybersecurity professional and think of them as peers and partners, then it is much easier to work with IT teams and work with developer teams and work with business application owners if you think of their responsibilities and really educate them on what it is that they can bring to the table to help build a more secure product. And most important of all is you must never stop learning. There are always new threats to learn about. There's also new ways to learn how to protect your systems. And then it's important to always continue to learn how you can personally grow yourself to be a better leader within cybersecurity or any other field. This will also keep your mind creative and flexible, so that you'll be able to think outside of the box whenever new challenges come down. Now, I would like to take this opportunity to just circle back. I've been talking about the progression of my career, and I want to talk about the influences that have allowed me to take on all of those different roles over the years, and to embrace the opportunities that came down the line. I was a child of the 70s, and I was growing up at a period of time when the space program was really taking off, and a lot of new discoveries were constantly occurring. So I was fascinated by the way the world was changing around me. The first personal computers came out when I was a child. So we had one in the home as soon as we could, and it's where I started to have that fascination with programming. I was also a science fiction and fantasy geek, so I was always reading literature about what the future could be, and I wanted to be a part of that. I was also a military brat. My father was in the Air Force, and we traveled all over the United States, which gave me the opportunity to learn from many different people. And even within the United States, there are a lot of different cultures. And this really taught me how to listen and always put me in a place where I always knew that I would learn something new from other people. And this was very, very important to help me to become a good future leader. I'm fortunate to have had some really fantastic early inspiration for me as a woman who was interested in science and technology. Sally Ride, she was the first woman in astronaut. We had the space shuttle program going on at the time in full force, and it was just truly inspirational to see her be the first woman and what a successful person that she was being. Grace Hopper, I had the pleasure of listening to her speak when I was very young, and she was first in many ways. She was critical in the early days of computer programming, and she developed the first linker, which is what was the foundation for the first compilers, and she helped create the COBOL and Fortran languages. And in her speaking and talking about her career, it was truly an inspiration on how I too could find a career in a technology field. And of course, because I was a science fiction and fantasy buff at the time, this is when I saw 2001: A Space Odyssey, and I saw Star Trek, and the computers played key roles in both of those movies and shows. With as with Star Trek, the computer had a female voice, but I like that one of the smartest entities on the show was female, and then it was always created a strong impression on me what a strong personality Hal had on 2001: A Space Odyssey. So that I've always had this very, very early fascination with computers, so it's not really surprising that I eventually went into that technology arena. Over the years, I also learned to look at various books for inspiration on how to be both a strong leader as well as to continue to have that fascination with moving forward into the future. And these are a couple that I always recommend for different reasons. For every person who is entering the cybersecurity field, I strongly recommend the first thing they read is The Cuckoo's Egg. This is the true story of Clifford Stoll, and he was a scientist who worked on computers, and it was because he detected that there was something strange going on with one of their programs that he discovered that somebody had broken into their system and was stealing the resources, the computer resources, and talking to other people across the United States, he discovered that other people were experiencing these strange things as well, and he became the first person to really start tracking what was going on. And he worked with the government agencies to eventually catch this hacker, and he developed a lot of the technologies such as honeypots that are used today in the cybersecurity field, and he eventually transitioned full-time into that area. And I think it's a really important book to read to understand the start of cybersecurity. Lean In is another book that, for me as a woman professional, that was very critical at a particular time in my life when I was deciding whether or not to take a chance on a new job. This company was trying to lure me away from my current role, but I was pregnant at the time, and I didn't know if I really could take a chance on making the transition while I was pregnant. And so I was reading this book at the time, and it really inspired me to take a chance and to not only look at taking this job, but to come in and state exactly what it was that I wanted. I was successful in gaining everything I wanted as part of the job's transition, and as well as being able to do it while I was pregnant. And they did not blink at my needing to take maternity leave so quickly after starting the job. The Martian is a science fiction book that is about endurance and survival. It's about when the worst possible thing happens and it looks like there's no way that you're going to survive, looking for the next solution and never giving up. And there are many times on the job when you think that you're not going to be able to solve this problem, you're not going to be able to stop this attack, or you're not going to be able to recover these systems. And the key point is this, and sometimes the panic will set in, and it's really important to stop and think about the fact that there is a way through the problem, and to start thinking outside the box and continue pushing forward no matter what. Another book that I like to recommend is The Woman Who Smashed Codes, which is about Elizabeth Friedman. She and her husband founded cryptanalysis, and it was a fantastic inspiration to me because she did not start off as a scientist or anyone who knew anything about cryptography or codes. She was taking a research position where she would just be reading information, and she would be helping out as an assistant to somebody else who was doing research on, who happened to be doing research on codes. And she discovered she was really, really good at seeing patterns. But she didn't just see patterns, she started developing techniques to rapidly decode any ciphers that they came across. So this is a very, very fascinating read. And she, over time, in addition to becoming a founder of modern cryptanalysis, she's known today as the mother of the NSA. Now, over the years, I struggled with finding mentors. I had some really fantastic male mentors who were very supportive of me in my career, who really saw that I had the strength and the drive to be successful, and who provided me great advice and support as I moved from role to role. I, however, never did have any female mentors, and I definitely felt that lack over the years. And a lot of that was because of the fact that I would be the first woman in IT or cybersecurity in most of my roles, and I was definitely the first woman leader in all of my cybersecurity roles. I only ever had one female manager over the course of my career. So as a result, I never really had a female mentor that I could turn to whenever I was facing a challenge and trying to understand how I could be a strong woman in what was very much a strong man's world, and bring the strengths that I had, and not have those strengths perceived as a weakness just simply because I was a woman. So I found mentorship where I could, and fortunately today I've learned how to seek advice and counseling with other female leaders outside of my industries, and I also learned that you can find mentors. They don't have to be within your particular industry. It doesn't have to be a cybersecurity professional who is providing that mentorship. And so I did, over the course of time, find some strong female leaders outside of my field who, if I wanted to go and really talk about a leadership challenge or how to progress my leadership career, then I could do that with them. And it really helped me as I moved forward. And it's because of this, the challenges that I had in having any female mentorships, that I decided that I, as a professional and a leader, need to give back and make certain that I provide that mentorship to any young woman who is entering the field, or any existing professional who wants to transition into cybersecurity. And so I spend my spare time volunteering with Women in Cybersecurity, or WESIS. I will provide resume reviews or career counseling to anyone who reaches out to me through that organization. I'm also on the board for Women Driving Innovation, and our focus is on providing support and an avenue for women to really think about how they could be innovators within technology, especially for anyone who's wanting to transition and build their own businesses and become an innovator in their particular field, whether it is financial technology or whether it's cybersecurity or healthcare. We just provide support and can introduce women to powerful female figures within those different fields. I'm also a board member for the South region of ONIT, which is the Women Employee Resource Group for my current company. And again, we provide support and mentorship and leadership to women to show how they can become the future leaders at our company. So how did this all shape me? Who did I become today? I am a mother and wife. I have two wonderful children who think that what I do is really, really cool. I have a husband who is incredibly supportive and does everything he can to help be an aid to me as I continue to advance my career. I am a mentor and advisor to women who are seeking to enter the field, or anyone really. I've never limited myself or my advice to women. I will provide advice and to anyone who comes to me and asks for it. And I love to share the knowledge I've gained over the years, and I love to connect people to other people so that they can help each other as they move forward. I am a cybersecurity and IT leader who is focused on what can I do to satisfy the goals and of our companies and support all of the employees in becoming better cybersecurity professionals. And I am a risk assessor and auditor, and I look and see how we can do better at our current job. And I thank you very much for listening, and hope that this will help you in your path as you look towards a cybersecurity career or any other career that you might have that you want to be a leader in. Thank you very much.